Hello, and welcome to Morph Minutes, presented by Studio M Financial. Studio M Financial exists to help you change the sound of your money through financial education and coaching. I am your host, Katrina Pitts, lead instructor and financial coach here at Studio M. And today's episode is week 4 of our 4-week discussion on decision making. Week 1 was major purchases. Week 2 was the amount and form of the payment. Week 3 was the timing of this expense. And today we're going to talk about alternatives. But before we get started, I just encourage you to put in your comments and questions in the chat box below, or the comment section below rather. Also encourage you to subscribe to our Studio M Financial's YouTube page. You can find us on social media. We are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram as well, and LinkedIn. You can find us. I'm going to drop us a message there. Or you can cruise by our website at www.studiomfinancial.net. You can email us at letstalk@studiomfinancial.net. There are a variety of ways for you to connect with us, and I invite you to utilize any of those avenues that you choose to avail yourself of. So with that, again, today we're going to talk about alternatives. And this one's actually, I think I may have said last week was one of my favorites, but actually I think this week is my favorite alternatives. And there's 3 questions that we want to ask. And let me just also say this. There's probably through these 4 one-pagers where we're sort of breaking down these 4 categories of things to think about when we're making decisions. I don't mean to imply that we need to go through all 16 to 18 questions, because frankly, that's a lot of questions to think about. But there should be some things that spring to mind as we are getting ready to lay out a substantial amount of cash or put on our credit card for these purchases. So these are just options of things to think about, not the totality of things that we need to think about. So I just want to throw that out there. When you look at the papers, you think, oh my gosh, who has time to think about this? I am very much aware of that, but these are really just thought prompters for us to just kind of hold in the back of our minds, and tools in our toolkit. So the 3 questions for this week, our question is there another way to make this purchase? Alternatives. So question 1, is there an alternative to this service or product at a lesser cost? And maybe the example I'm getting ready to give is because I spent some time with my dad and brother the last couple of days. So some of these are tool and home maintenance related. So places like Home Depot or Lowe's, Harbor Freight, Northern Tools, options to find products or services at a lesser cost. So for this, if there's an alternative, what's the cost and what's the provider of this service or product, and how will this impact my budget? So things I just listed off a second ago. So Home Depot, Lowe's, if I'm looking for tools and home improvement type things. Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, Northern Tools. Or do I have to go to the top tier? Is there a middle tier alternative available at a lesser cost, but the still quality of that is still commensurate with those top tier places? They just may be more regional. They may be more community based. What are those alternatives? And then if there is no alternative to the cost of this product or service, does this cost for this only option provide equal or greater value of what I'm getting ready to pay for? So like I said, with tools and such, those are some of the stores. One of the things that I just purchased a printer for my home office not too long ago, and there were certain things that I needed it to just print things. I needed to print, I needed to scan, I needed to copy. I didn't really care if it was inkjet or laser. It mattered not to me. I just needed to be able to push the print button on my computer and it spit out a replication of whatever document or thing that I was looking at. So for me, I didn't have to go to the sort of top level options. I found what made most sense in my budget, and I shopped around a little bit at a couple of different retailers, and found the exact same printer for a much lesser price, skipped shipping, skipped all of the delivery part, and was able to pick it up at the retailer here close to my home. So it wasn't an alternative product, but it turned out to be an alternative retailer for the same product at a much lesser cost as well. So think about those things as well. It may not necessarily be a alternative switching one product or service for another one to get the job done. It could be that you find an alternative retailer for the exact same piece or exact same service at a lesser cost, and you can pay that and move on down the road. So is there an alternative to the service or product? Is it reduced, this came from my dad. I was trying to get my thoughts together. I was switching gears and I didn't fully move from second to third gear on that one. For you manual transmission people, you would appreciate that reference. But one of the things I was talking to my dad about a couple of days ago is he was purchasing this particular thing for his home. And he admitted that he wanted to buy this, I don't know, probably a year to 18 months ago. And at the time, it didn't make sense to make this purchase. And so when I was at his house a couple of days ago, he said, hey, go check, in the back room. I want you to see something that I just bought for myself. So I go back in there and I look and think, oh, you bought XYZ item that you and I talked about a while back. And he said, sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So as he was talking through it, he said there were a couple of other options for this particular product that he purchased that had additional bells and whistles to it, additional add-ons, additional features. And as he was going through the thought process in his head, and this is separate from our decision-making discussion here, he just was doing it. He said those bells and whistles that were part of it was a significantly, that product that had the additional bells and whistles, the amount of that was so much more that it didn't make sense for him to pay that much more money for those features that he wasn't actually going to utilize regularly enough to make it make sense. And if you remember back to our discussion that we had let me think, we were talking about cost per use. So week 2, cost per use, will it have multiple or will it have single cost per use? Will it be multiple uses or single uses? That's it. And of this price, what is the actual cost per use? For him, those additional features didn't make sense and he wasn't going to utilize them enough to pay how much of a difference that was. So for our discussion, I want us to think about that as well. That or may not is the alternative that we had. Is there a package? Is there a service that doesn't have all the features added on, especially if those features and add-ons are something that we are not going to utilize regularly enough to justify that difference in cost? Meaning, is there a service or is there a warranty? Is there a particular feature on this device or a particular feature on this piece of equipment that sounds nice, but the reality that is that we're not going to use it regularly enough to make that $80, $90, $50, $100 difference make sense? So think about those as alternatives as well. Is there something that's more of a base model that makes more sense for us and what we're trying to accomplish, that we don't need all the additional features that are driving up the price and driving up the cost, and we're not going to actually get the value and the usage out of it that we think we would? So thinking about that for travel, or is there an adjustment of the date? So sometimes, and you've seen this on different websites that you look out for, if you're booking flights or you're booking cars, sometimes they'll show you what the amount of it is if you rent on this day, if you purchase on this day. And sometimes you can adjust your dates and flexible with your dates by a couple of days. You can save yourself some money that way. So alternative dates. So it may not be alternative carriers. It may not be alternative flight airline providers. It could be we're just changing the date by a day or two because we have flexibility and we're saving ourselves a good amount of money for that as well. So alternatives. Question 2, is there a coupon or discount for this product or service? Is there a coupon or discount? If yes, does the discount reduce the cost to a more manageable amount? And if no, is the full amount of the service or product manageable? So first part of that, is there a discount? Is there a coupon? If yes, does it apply discount or apply percentage off? Does that make this cost more manageable? Not just, it was $400, now it's $300. Can we even manage $300? Can we even manage the $400 if it's down from $700? The discount may not necessarily be material enough for us to actually be able to manage it. So that's very, very important. If no, is the full amount something that we're comfortable with? Meaning, if it's $700 and there is no discount, there is no coupon, the price is what the price is. Are we comfortable with paying this amount? And if yes, then we move forward. If no, then we're sort of back to we need to find an alternative for this. If we can't find it at a lesser cost or expense, what's an alternative? What's a short-term solution? We'll come to that here in a second. So I was talking to a client about this, and I asked her what is the percentage discount that would be meaningful enough for you to take advantage of it. And her number was 20%. So is that discount code, or is that discount percentage 20%, 15%, 25%? What is it for you? What is that reduction in cost, that percentage, that coupon rate, whatever it, or not coupon rate, that coupon amount? What is it meaningful enough for you to say, okay, we drop it 20%, I'm good. We drop it 15%, I'm good. We drop it 30%, I'm good. What is that amount for you? Just food for thought. Nothing, you don't have to factor in every decision, but just I thought it was an interesting conversation that she and I had of, she directly said if the difference between the full price and the sale price is 20%, and then on the price for the 20%. So just a question I have for you. Question number 3. Is there a short-term, less expensive solution to address the purchase while saving for the larger expense? So is there a short-term, kind of more immediate solution that I can do now while I'm saving for a larger expense related to this later? If yes, what's that solution? And if no, can I get comfortable with the required expense or purchase amount? Because there is not one. So is there short term? Is there, it may be sometimes when I go get my car repaired or oil changed at my particular service provider, they will give me a list of here are the things that, kind of red things that you need to deal with immediately for your car, yellow things that you have some time on, and green that are in good working order. You don't have to concern yourself with it. And sometimes my question will be, sometimes I have to go through and say, okay, for purposes of my budget where it is right now, we can deal with this, we can deal with this, we can deal with this. These other, 3 things or 4 things or whatever it is, we're gonna have to deal with those later, because right now I either don't want to pay for them right now, or I don't have to pay for them right now, or I need to save for those because a little bit more high of a dollar. Or alternatively, it's we really need to deal with these things here, but for right now, we're going to deal with this one major thing. It is hecka expensive, but right now that needs to be done ASAP, and these other things these smaller, even though they are smaller amounts and maybe more manageable, they are less of a priority, and so we can come back to those later. So again, what are the short-term things that we can address now while we are saving for those larger expenses for later? So things to think about. So today, again, this week is alternatives. Is there another way to make this purchase? Our 3 questions. Is there an alternative to this service product at a lesser cost? Is there an alternative? Meaning we are swapping one thing for the other. We are swapping this pair of shoes for that pair of shoes. We're swapping this hammer for that hammer. And our quality does not diminish, or it doesn't diminish enough to where it is material and felt. It is pretty on par and pretty on level with whatever the higher tier cost is or the higher tier product is. The second tier down, there's basically no difference to it. So if there is alternative, is it up to this cost? What's the provider of this service? What's the provider of this product? And how is this going to impact my budget? Again, needs, wants, goals, all works together. Is there a short-term, less expensive solution that I can deal with now while saving for that cost for the larger expense going forward? Or even reverse that, what I just said a second ago. Do I need to take care of the larger part first, and then we can come back and filter in those little smaller pieces later because they are less of a priority, and we can move forward with safety and with good coverage. Third question, is there a coupon or discount for the service product? Can I get this at a lesser cost, lesser price because there's a coupon code attached to it or a discount code attached to it? Sometimes I've seen this, and I'll wrap up with this. Sometimes I've seen where I've put things in my basket for particular products, and walked away because I kind of forgot about it. And then maybe 2 days later, I'll get an email from that provider and say, hey, we saw that you left, things in your basket. Here's an additional X amount of percentage off. And I'll think, oh, shoot, I totally forgot that was even in there. Oh, okay, 15% off. That's an incentive for me to go back and purchase it because I can now get a lesser price to it. Get it for a lesser price. So something to think about. Those three things, again, our 4-part series. So we have talked about major purchases as a whole. What is a major purchase? Is it based on price? Is it based on emergency? Is it based on the time frame? It's on emergency, but we have a more immediate deadline to take care of these particular things. Is it associated with a need? Is it associated with a want? And by need, it is our kind of 4 walls of our household budget. So our housing, utilities, food, transportation. Is it a want because it's entertainment or it's family or it's, for our kids, it's for a non-essential, but it is still important. Now we're having to outlay this amount of money for it. Second, or is it part of a goal? Is it part of a short-term goal that we have or a long-term goal that we have related to education or our career or a hobby or again, our kids or, whatever that goal is, or we're going to have to put aside some money for an investment that we had. We wanted to purchase this piece of property. We wanted to purchase this particular item because it's an investment item and it's a high amount. So we had to save for this. And before we get ready to purchase it, it's still a lot of money. And we know that we'll get a return on investment, but it's still a lot to consider and a lot of money to pay for. So all of those are on the table. So that was major purchases. Week 2, we talked about form of payment. So are we paying for this by cash? Are we paying for this by credit? What particular amount is it coming out, account is it coming out of? Our savings account, our operating account, travel account, whatever account that you have at your disposal. Do we have a plan to replenish that account? Once we withdraw this amount of money for this payment, can we replenish it? If we have this credit card for it, what's our plan to pay this credit card off, and how long is that going to take? Do we have to carry forward a balance because it's a large enough amount that we either may struggle to pay for it in full? We don't have the available resources for it, which means we're incurring interest, and that is going to be applied. That means our balance is going to increase, which means it'll take us longer to pay it off. All things to consider. And then our cost per use. With this item, will I get one use? Will I get multiple uses out of it? Which means I'm kind of getting more bang for my buck, if you will. Or if it's fewer uses, is it for a particular purpose, particular reason, that it doesn't actually matter the utility of it, but the value of it makes sense in what we have assigned to it personally, which is subjective. Personally, it matches and it makes sense. The other part, week 3, we talked about the timing of it. Was this anticipated? Did we know it was coming? Did we plan for it? Do we have some sort of sinking fund available, meaning we have saved for it with regular monthly deposits and savings over the last several months, several years, because we knew we were going to need a large amount of money for this, and we didn't want to do it in one big lump sum. So we planned for it, we prepared for it. If we did it because we couldn't anticipate it, or if we didn't, but we could have anticipated it, what's our plan to pay for it? We're back to cash, we're back to credit, back to our replenishing and paying off question that we have to ask ourselves. How are we going to work through the timing of that? Do we have to do this immediately? Can we give ourselves some time for thought and consideration? Can we give ourselves some time to think about and research alternatives, which was today's lesson? Can we think about different retailers? Are there different providers for this? Is there a more local, less national opportunity or brand for this? All things to consider, again. And these considerations aren't going to apply to every single purchase, but things to think about and things to think through. And then this week we had alternatives. Is there an alternative? Can we switch out one for one? Or is there do they have different tiers of products, different tiers of services that don't have all of the add-ons that we know that we can be more than covered in a more basic model, more than covered in a basic subscription, in a basic purchase. And the add-ons that are available don't necessarily provide us the boost, don't necessarily provide us the cover or the quality or the usage and utility that we think we are going to get from it. So we don't really need it. So we're not going to pay for it. So alternatives. Do you have a short-term solution while we're getting ready to pay for the longer-term solution? What can we do now? What do we need to do now? That's really more priority, that we can then start filtering in those less critical options, those less critical expenditures for the future. And then is there a coupon or a discount for those products or services? Is there a window of opportunity that we have on the calendar, on the schedule, or we can get at a lesser cost if we adjust some of our days and some of our timing? What does that mean? And really just, what's the number? What's the amount that's meaningful enough for us? 20% off or 15% off, 30% off, 50% off, whatever the amount is for us to feel comfortable with that. And if there is no discount, how can we get comfortable with paying the full amount for those things as well? So again, all things to think about. Let me rephrase this. Many things to think about, but we don't have to think about all of those things all of the time, because we would definitely be paralyzed when it came to decision making. And that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is help us to be more connected to our purchases, more connected to our money management. And part of that is just being thoughtful about it, just being aware of the money that we're paying, the whys behind why we're paying it, the goals that we are trying to accomplish, the things that we want, the things that bring us joy, that bring us entertainment and bring life into us and fill us up. Fine, at least we understand why we are doing it, but we're not doing it without thought. We're not doing it without purposefulness. We're doing it with a lot of intentionality. So I hope you all have enjoyed the last 4 weeks in these sort of shorter lessons and shorter discussions that we have had on decision making. And hopefully they've been helpful for you. Like I said earlier, feel free to leave comments or questions, and all the different platforms that you can find us on, open and available for dialogue and to help you along your journey. I know I'm still on mine as well, even as a practitioner. I'm still learning, still growing, still developing, still changing. I'm in my own personal money management as well. So anytime I can help others and assist others on their way, I find it a great joy and a great delight. I encourage you also to check us out on our website. We have a couple of Your Money Sound Introduction to Personal Money Management classes coming up in January. We offer them the first and the third Tuesday of every month. They're 2-hour sessions, and we'll be covering communications and budgeting, discussion to our personalities, kind of how our personalities impact our money decisions and money management as well, and just being aware of them, with the need to change them, but just really being aware of them. And a variety of other topics in that 2-hour session. So I encourage you all to check that out. Like I said, we offer them the first and third Tuesday of every single month. So come on over. We'd love to have you come and grab a seat and be a part of the discussion. Again, my name is Katrina Pitts, lead instructor and financial coach here at Studio M Financial. I'm glad that and thrilled and honored that you all would take the time with us today. And until we meet, keep working on the change.